Elon Musk recently said something that should have stopped everyone in their tracks. In an April 2026 interview, tech entrepreneur Peter Diamandis broke down Musk's argument.
But I do think it's somewhat of a dubious situation because, what happened was by degrees. Meaning it wasn't stolen all at once, but stolen one piece at a time.
That as AI and robotics advance, traditional retirement savings could become less important, work could become optional, and society may need something like a universal high income to deal with AI-driven unemployment. In other words, AI takes the jobs, the government cuts the checks, robots produce the goods, and somehow, we're all supposed to be holding hands, singing Kumbaya, and living in abundance. No scarcity, no struggle, no need to save. No need to work unless you want to, a future where money itself slowly becomes irrelevant. At least, that's the dream being sold to the public. But here's the part they don't put in the sales pitch. While the masses are being promised a future of artificial intelligence, universal income, and effortless abundance, the billionaire class is preparing for something much darker. Not with speeches, not with tweets, not with utopian predictions, but with underground shelters, private islands, remote compounds, water systems, food productions, and private military, escape routes, and land far away from the cities they helped transform. So here's the question. If AI is going to create a world of abundance, why are the people closest to the technology preparing like civilization might break? Mark Zuckerberg has reportedly been building a massive compound in Hawaii. Wired reported that planning documents for his ranch property included a tunnel leading to a 5,000 square foot underground shelter with living space, a mechanical room, and an escape hatch. Peter Thiel has long been connected to New Zealand, a country that has become almost mythological among the ultra-wealthy, as a remote escape hatch if civilization begins to unravel. And LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman told The New Yorker that he estimated more than half of Silicon Valley billionaires had acquired some form of apocalypse insurance, whether in the United States or abroad. So maybe the real story is not that AI will make life easier. Maybe the real story is that AI will make most people unnecessary. And maybe the elites are not preparing for abundance. Maybe they're preparing for the moment the human bubble finally bursts. Because once you see the pattern, it becomes hard to unsee. The same people selling the public a future of convenience are privately preparing for a future of control. The same class promising a world where machines do the work is buying land, water, food, security, and underground protection. That is not random, that is a signal, and maybe it is one of the clearest signs that the world they are building was never meant for us. The public story is simple. Everything is fine. Technology will save us. AI will make life easier. Robots will do the jobs nobody wants. Universal income will keep people comfortable. Digital money will make payments faster. Smart cities will make life more efficient. And the future will be cleaner, safer, more connected, and more convenient than anything humanity has ever experienced. That's the promise. A world where nobody has to struggle. A world where scarcity disappears. A world where machines generate so much wealth that money itself becomes almost meaningless. But that story has a problem, because the people selling it don't seem to be living like they believe it. If the future is abundance, why are they preparing for scarcity? If the future is safe, why are they investing in security? If the system is stable, why are they building ways to survive outside of it? And if AI is about to free humanity, why does it feel like the most powerful people on Earth are preparing for humanity to become expendable? The article that inspired this video described a growing trend among billionaires and tech elites. Massive underground survival bunkers, remote compounds, private estates, independent power systems, and long-term food and water supplies. It framed these projects as preparation for scenarios where society as we know it begins to break down. And that's the contradiction. The public gets promises. The elite get preparation. The public gets speeches about progress. The elite get underground shelters. The public gets told to trust the future, while the elite quietly builds exits from it. Mark Zuckerberg's Hawaii compound is one of the clearest examples. This is not some random prepper in the woods. This is one of the most powerful technology figures in human history. The man who helped drag billions of people into the digital world is building a physical fortress in the real one. Wired reported that Zuckerberg's ranch plans included a 5,000 square foot underground shelter, extensive security measures, keypad-operated doors, soundproofing in places, and numerous cameras shown in planning documents. Now, to be fair, Zuckerberg has denied the doomsday bunker framing. In an interview, he pushed back on the rumors and described it as a little shelter, more like a basement or storage space. Business Insider reported that he downplayed the idea that his Hawaii ranch was some kind of doomsday bunker, while noting that prior reporting described an underground structure with living space, a mechanical room, and an escape hatch. And maybe that's true. Maybe it is just a hurricane shelter. Maybe it is just storage. Maybe it is just a basement. But here's the problem. Most people's basements don't sit underneath a 1,400-acre compound. Most people's hurricane shelters don't come attached to private food supplies, energy systems, tunnels, escape routes, and extreme security. And most people don't need the media to explain why their basement looks like something built for the collapse of civilization. So call it whatever you want, a shelter, a basement, a safety feature, a hurricane room. The point remains the same. The people who tell us to live digitally are preparing physically. The people who tell us to trust systems are building private systems. The people who tell us the future is connected are buying isolation. Then there's Peter Thiel. Thiel is not just another billionaire. He's one of the most influential minds in Silicon Valley, connected to PayPal, Palantir, venture capital, data, defense, and the machinery of the modern technocratic world. And for years, his connection to New Zealand has carried a strange symbolic weight. New Zealand became a kind of code among elites, a place far away, remote, defensible, politically stable, surrounded by water, and distant from the chaos of collapsing cities and broken systems. Think about what that means. Among ordinary people, apocalypse preparation is treated like paranoia. Among billionaires, it becomes a real estate strategy. And that alone should make people uncomfortable. But this story is bigger than bunkers, because a bunker is not just a structure. A bunker is a confession. It says, I do not fully trust the system. It says, I need a private fallback. It says, when the public order breaks, I do not intend to be standing in line with everyone else. And that is why this matters, because the billionaire class is not just preparing for a temporary inconvenience. They're preparing for a different kind of civilization. A civilization where access matters more than ownership, where food matters more than money, where water matters more than status, where security matters more than popularity, where land matters more than followers, where physical reality suddenly becomes more important than the digital illusion. And that is exactly where the AI story becomes darker, because the public is being told AI will create abundance. But abundance for who? If AI replaces millions of workers, if automation replaces entire industries, if digital systems control access to money, if algorithms decide who gets visibility, income, loans, jobs, housing, and opportunity, then what happens to the people who are no longer needed? What happens when the machine no longer needs the worker? What happens when the economy no longer needs the middle class? What happens when human labor becomes less valuable than the machine output? For most of modern history, the system needed people. It needed workers, consumers, taxpayers, soldiers, voters, borrowers, bodies. But what happens when AI can do the thinking? When robots can do the labor? When digital money can control behavior? When surveillance can manage populations? When synthetic systems can replace natural ones? At that point, the question changes. It is no longer, how will technology help humanity? The question becomes, how much humanity does the system still need? This is where it connects directly to the human bubble. For decades, civilization has been inflated beyond its natural limits. Too much debt, too much consumption, too much technology, dependency, artificial food, screen addiction, medication, loneliness, propaganda, control, too much fake growth, fake wealth, fake connection. Every bubble eventually hits a wall, and it doesn't always happen in one dramatic moment. Sometimes the system just starts tightening. Jobs disappear, prices rise, birth rates fall. People get weaker, lonelier, more dependent. And the same machine that once needed more workers, more consumers, and more bodies starts looking for ways to manage fewer of them. That's where the sales pitch starts to fall apart, because maybe the elite aren't just preparing for collapse. Maybe they're preparing for what comes after it, a world with fewer people, fewer choices, fewer rights, fewer jobs, fewer freedoms, fewer independent citizens, and far more dependence on centralized systems. A world where artificial intelligence handles production, digital money handles behavior, smart cities handle movement, surveillance handles compliance, and universal income handles the unemployed masses, not as prosperity, but as management. Because universal high income sounds beautiful on the surface, who wouldn't want more money? Who wouldn't want financial security? Who wouldn't want a world where people don't have to suffer just to survive? But ask the next question: who issues the checks? Who controls the system? Who decides eligibility? Who decides what behavior is acceptable? Who decides what you can buy, where you can go, what you can say, what you can own? And what happens if that income is connected to a digital ID, a social score, a carbon limit, a health requirement, or political obedience? Suddenly, universal income stops looking like freedom and starts looking like a leash. What happens if the next crisis is not managed with bullets or bombs? What if it is managed with permissions, with QR codes, travel limits, digital IDs, rationing systems, emergency powers, and payment rails that can be turned on or off with a policy update? During COVID, the world got a preview of something most people never thought they would accept. Lockdowns, restricted movements, digital health passes, QR codes, travel rules that changed overnight, businesses closed by decree, people told they were not allowed to work, gather, travel, or even sit inside certain places unless they met the conditions of the movement. Now maybe you believe all that was necessary, maybe you don't, but either way, one thing is undeniable. The public learned to live under emergency permission systems. So what happens if the next emergency is not a virus? What happens if it is energy, food, fuel, banking, supply chains? What happens if the same logic returns under a new name? Not lockdown this time, maybe conservation, stabilization, emergency rationing, carbon reduction, digital safety, temporary restrictions. And once again, the public is told a lie. It's only for a little while. It's for the greater good. It's to keep everyone safe. Let's be clear, this does not mean every billionaire is sitting in a dark room planning the end of the world. That's too cartoonish. The real world is usually colder than that. More bureaucratic, more financial, more technological. Less like a movie villain and more like a spreadsheet. But the direction is obvious. The system is becoming more automated, more centralized, more digital, more surveilled, more fragile, and more hostile to ordinary human independence. So when billionaires build bunkers, when they buy islands, when they secure food, water, land, and private infrastructure, it raises a disturbing question. Are they preparing for the collapse of the system, or are they preparing for the controlled demolition of the old world? Because a true depopulation event does not have to look like a movie. It does not have to be one giant explosion. It can be slower, quieter, more bureaucratic. Collapsing birth rates, economic despair, automation replacing work, isolation replacing family, digital addiction replacing purpose, artificial food replacing nutrition, endless medication replacing health, constant fear replacing community. The greatest vulnerability in this collapsing system isn't our brittle electrical grid, but our collective mindset. Americans have known only artificial abundance, built on debt and global exploitation. We have no cultural memory of living under real sanctions or systemic scarcity, unlike the populations of Russia or Iran, who have endured such pressures for generations. This psychological break will be the real crisis. When the frappuccinos run out, the Amazon deliveries stop, and a digital ration card is the only way to buy a bag of beans, the shock will trigger a societal breakdown far worse than any toilet paper rush. A book on societal collapse notes that predicting human behavior in the face of terminal chaos is extremely difficult, as people abandon the norms of today. Our institutions have bred helplessness and dependency out of us, leaving a population primed for panic and capable of the real basic self-reliance that was once our national character. That is the human bubble. Not just too many people, but too many people trapped inside a system that no longer sees them as human. Look at the contrast. The average person is being pushed into smaller spaces, higher prices, digital dependency, and constant surveillance. The ultra-rich are buying land. The average person is told to rent forever. They buy thousands of acres. The average person is told to reduce consumption. They build private compounds. The average person is told to trust public systems. They create private infrastructure. The average person is told the future is safe. They prepare for danger. The average person is told money may become irrelevant. They convert money into land, water, shelter, security, and control. That is the real signal, because people can lie with words, but money tells the truth. And right now, elite money is not acting like the future is safe. It's acting like the future is something to survive. But maybe the most dangerous part of any collapse is not the first shock. It's the reassurance that comes after it, the official claim, the smiling anchors, the carefully managed headlines, the promise that everything is under control. Because every declining system eventually learns the same trick. Don't tell the people the system is breaking. Tell them the system is evolving. The public gets reassurance. The powerful get briefings. The public gets headlines. The powerful get exits. And by the time ordinary people realize the fallout is already spreading, the ones who saw it coming are already behind the gates. But what if the collapse does not arrive the way people expect? What if it doesn't start with mushroom clouds? What if it starts with fuel, with shipping lanes, with gas fields, with choke points most people never think about until the price at the pump suddenly explodes? Recent reports say Iran's natural gas infrastructure connected to South Pars was damaged during Israeli airstrikes. South Pars is part of the world's largest natural gas field. Shared with Qatar, and Iran announced plans to curb gas consumption after the damage. Now ask yourself, what if energy infrastructure is no longer just background machinery? What if it becomes the battlefield? And then there is the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway most Americans couldn't even find on a map. Yet the U.S. Energy Information Administration says that in 2024, oil flows through the strait averaged about 20 million barrels per day, roughly 20% of global petroleum liquid consumption. So what happens if that choke point is threatened? What happens if shipping slows? What happens if insurance costs explode? What happens if oil spikes, supply chains tighten, and the just-in-time economy starts cracking under pressure? Maybe the real panic is not over who wins a battlefield headline. Maybe the real panic is what happens when ordinary people realize their banks, pantries, gas tanks, and grocery stores are all connected to fragile systems they don't control. And maybe that's why the official message is always the same. Stay calm, everything is okay. The system is stable. The experts have it handled. But what if the people building bunkers are not preparing for the bomb? What if they're preparing for the bankruptcies, shortages, panic, and disorder and chaos that come after? So when people like Elon Musk talk about universal high income, listen carefully. Not because the idea is impossible, but because it reveals the direction we are moving. A world where work disappears. A world where money changes meaning. A world where machines produce the goods. A world where government distributes the checks. A world where human purpose is replaced by digital dependency. And at the same time, the people closest to that future are building shelters from it. That is the contradiction, and contradictions reveal truth. The elite aren't building bunkers because they think everything's fine. They're building bunkers because they understand something most people won't face. The human bubble is not sustainable. And when it bursts, the people who warned you the least may be the ones who prepared the most. So the next time you tell your AI you will save humanity, remember they built the underground. Remember the private islands. Remember the remote compounds. Remember the food systems. Because maybe the real message was never in what they said. Maybe it was in what they built. And if they are preparing for the world after us, then maybe it's time we start asking what kind of world they expect to remain. If this video made you think, hit the like button, share it with someone who still believes the system is stable, and subscribe for more cinematic breakdowns of the hidden systems shaping our future. Because the truth is not always pretty. Sometimes it's buried underground. Remember, you're either the lion or the sheep.